Hello everyone, this is Special Workshop. I remind you that we post new videos every day. I also want to remind you that some of my video courses are already available. Buy them if you haven't done it yet. I would really appreciate your support. Today we continue working with the blend wool. I love this fabric. I'm going to show you how to make a skirt of it. I'll make a skirt for Ola. This is the fabric I'll be making the skirt of. It is going to be very comfortable. Ola will be able to combine it with different pullovers, sweatshirts, and other garments. I think that the color of the fabric is very beautiful. The fabric can be moved aside. Today I'm going to show you how to make a pattern for the skirt. This is Ola's basic pattern for a skirt. Have a look at the sketch. There will be a yoke in the skirt. It will be about 7 centimeters wide. There will be 3 seams on the back. The seam on the center back will end with a vent. There will also be 2 princess seams on both sides. The front will be the same. The center front seam and 2 princess seams. Why to make so many seams? When working with the blend wool, the more seams you make, the better. We'll show you how to make seams in the blend wool. They will decorate the skirt. Blend wool also stretches. The seams will make the skirt stronger and help it to keep its shape. If you want, you can make side pockets. In our case, there will be no pockets in the skirt. The peculiarity of the skirt will be the overlap seams made with the cover stitch machine. They will decorate the skirt. The design is going to be pretty interesting. Have a look at the sketch once again. There is a yoke, and 3 seams on the front, and 3 seams on the back. The bottom will be edged with facing. It will be 6 centimeters wide. It will make the bottom stronger. We'll show you everything. Don't worry. 6 centimeters is the perfect width for the overcast in this case. Ola has a basic pattern for the skirts. I am working on a course on how to make basic patterns for skirts at the moment. Are you waiting for it? I think that it will be very useful. I should note that a skirt is a very important garment in women's wardrobe. The more skirts you have, the better. You can combine them with various shirts, blouses, sweaters. You can create unusual and stylish outfits. Let's get down to work. Have a look at the basic pattern first. 2 waist tucks on the back and 1 on the front. The hips are pretty low. As I've said, the yoke will be 7 centimeters wide. I need to measure and mark 7 centimeters on the pattern. You can extend the darts if needed. I'll make this one longer. It will be much more convenient for me to draw the yoke this way. I can start drawing a yoke now. It may seem that sewing the skirt is easy. Make 2 seams and the skirt is ready. It's not true. Be very attentive. I'll make the yoke about 4 by 5 centimeters wide on the center back. It would look more beautiful in this case. Do not forget to sign the details. The center front, the lengthwise grain, the center back, the lengthwise grain. I can cut the yoke now. Once your basic pattern for a skirt is ready, make a couple of mock-ups on its basis. You need to make sure that the fit is perfect. Close the dart. This is where it is now. There will be no darts in the back yoke as well. This is where the darts are now. The fit of the skirt hasn't been changed. Be very attentive. These are the yoke details. I hope that it's clear that the center front and the center back should be cut on the lengthwise grain. Next, I need to draw the princess seams. You can draw them however you want. I remind you that we've decided to make 3 seams on the front and 3 seams on the back.
У меня расстояние почти 13 сантиметров. А здесь я возьму 11,5.
I need to measure and mark 13 centimeters on the upper edge and 11.5 centimeters on the bottom. I'm making these details a bit tighter at the bottom. In this case, the lines will be more beautiful. This detail is a bit wider at the top than it is at the bottom. You can make a skirt of some other fabric and stitch the details with the plain seams. It's not necessary to make skirts of blend wools. The pattern for the front is ready. The center front should be cut on the lengthwise grain, and there should be a seam here. You can make a fold if you want. Next, I need to do the same thing with the back. There is a small part of the dot here. It's okay. The distance at the top is 12.5 centimeters, so I need to measure 11 centimeters at the bottom. This is the side back detail. This is the side seam. Sign all the details. The pattern is ready. Have a look at it. I showed you how to make this pattern on the basis of a basic pattern for a skirt. The design is simple, but at the same time very beautiful. As I've said, you can make pockets if you want to. We are not going to do it. If you decide to sew such skirt of denim or cotton, You can make as many seams as you want.
Пожалуйста, чем больше отстрочки, тем лучше. Мы будем шить.
We're sewing a skirt of blend wool, so we're going to use a cover stitch machine for sewing it. Have a look at the sketch once again. There are 3 seams and the yoke on the back, and the front is the same. There will also be a slit on the center back seam. Be very attentive when you lay out the pattern on the fabric. Do not forget about the lengthwise grain.
Конечно, у нас будет молния.
Otherwise, a garment won't be accurate.
У нас будет делаться такая.
I remind
С
you
одной стороны,
that there will be a zipper in the center back seam.
пришиваться молния изнутри. Ну, мы к этому
The details will be stitched with the overlap seams.
еще покажем.
There is a special technique on how to insert zippers in such seams. Let's get down to work.
Складку. Центр
First, I need to cut the details.
кокеточка выложена. И нам
The center front and the center back are pinned on the lengthwise grain.
низа, которая вместо подгибки будет использована специально.
I will also need to cut a piece of fabric for facing to edge the bottom with it.
Ее вырежем. Когда у нас
I'll do it later.
полотнище. Я
I really hope that you like this design.
Я думаю, что мы еще поговорим о том, как на базе этой модели сделать еще как бы несколько моделей разных. Отлично.
Very nice.
Начинаем кроить. Единственное, что
I can start cutting now.
строить шлицу. Я думаю, что
I need to draw a vent on the back. It will be small,
шириной
about 12 centimeters long and 4 centimeters wide.
юбка короткая,
The skirt is pretty short.
Я, конечно, линейку.
Please, learn to work without a ruler if possible.
Я, конечно, это
Don't waste your time.
уже начинает шить, уже должно
You need to be able to draw a 4 centimeter wide detail by side.
Впереди как
The front part of the yoke is one piece.
по эскизу. Обратите
Have a look here.
этот момент. Если
Do not pay attention to the angles.
совершенно на этом
Make the line smooth and beautiful.
равно делайте плавную красивую линию. Вот видите, тут уголок вышел, когда складывали выточки. Совершенно на это не нужно обращать внимание. Центр переда. Будем делать шов.
Do not forget to add 1 centimeter for the seam allowance.
Я стараюсь
I'm cutting the center front now.
не больше. Вообще,
I'm cutting it on the lengthwise grain.
очень интересные вещи всегда.
I like blend wool. It's a very unusual texture. The front details are ready.
Вот так у нас
This is how they look like. I can start cutting the back now.
рисовать шлицу.
To do that, first I need to draw a vent.
Низа юбки, высота шлицы, ну, примерно, ну, давайте
I'll make it 13 centimeters long.
лишнее мы обрежем.
This is how the vent is going to look like. I'm trying really hard to cut beautiful details.
Красиво.
I hope you remember how to tack blend wool.
Я надеюсь, что все помним.
Do not forget to make a spacing seam on the center back in the vent. It's a must.
Я думаю, что те люди, которые давно на нашем канале, которые
I hope that you watch my videos regularly and learn different sewing techniques,
все получается теперь, потому что
like making spacing seams.
черпаете вот таких мелочей, которые помогают в работе. Если
I show you a lot of useful techniques and details.
потом это
I really hope that you find my tutorials useful.
можем, нам надо, чтобы она
I want you to be able to sew and wear high-quality, beautiful garments.
выкроечку откладываем.
The pattern can be detached and moved aside. Do not throw it away.
Юбочка достаем.
It might be useful next time you decide to make a skirt. Next, I need to make spacing seams in the vent. I need to make them in the both details.
Здесь была видна линия. Я сейчас
Do not forget to mark the wrong side.
потом не путаться.
Watch what I'm doing attentively.
Собираете
First, I need to tack the back details, then the front ones.
детали, не перепутывались на столе. Это создает тоже дополнительные сложности. Потом надо
In this case, you won't mix the details.
такое. А я это не...
This is the wrong side.
Вот у меня изнанка. Центр спины.
The center back, the side details,
Идет боковая часть. Да. Вот так вот. Здесь мы
I need to measure and mark 2 centimeters from the edge here.
два это
I remind you that I've added 1 centimeter for the seam allowance.
Но дело в том, что лучше потом в процессе работы какие-то миллиметры срезать. Теперь к этому
Next, I need to apply the edge of the other detail to this line and pin it.
у нас вот здесь вот
The details which cross are 2 centimeters wide. We'll make a seam in between them, so it will be 1 centimeter wide.
намотывать. И после того, когда
We'll cut the extra pieces from the seams when they're stitched with the cover stitch machine.
какие-то миллиметрики и излишечки срезать.
Well done.
Так вот.
I can take it now.
Намотывать. Думаю, что-то
The details seem to be short.
я уже забыла, что она у меня
When I take the yoke, the skirt will be long enough. I'm going to tack the skirt step by step, detail by detail.
Итак, по одному
Don't hurry. Work slowly and accurately.
ручку. Сейчас
I'll tack the second seam off the camera,
сметаю рельеф.
and then I'll show you how to tack the yoke. The princess seams are tacked.
Сейчас буду присоединять
The yoke will be tacked the same way as well.
2 сантиметра
Measure and mark 2 centimeters.
линии, буду
Apply the other detail right to this line. Pin it, and then tack.
нельзя
Be very attentive. Do not confuse the details. This is the center back.
доливая.
The lengthwise grain should match in the details.
У нас
I remind you that I've moved the opening of the tux, but I haven't removed it. I haven't changed the fit of the skirt. I'm turning separate details into a skirt.
Превращаются уже.
Have a look here. This part will fit Ola perfectly.
В этом месте
This is what the tacks are made for.
было две выточки здесь. Вот он. Он вот здесь и есть.
Next, I need to tack the second yoke detail the same way.
Отлично.
Blend wool is very unusual fabric.
Чем больше срезов на
The more seams you make, the better.
Вот наша спиночка. Не спиночка.
The back is almost ready. I can move it aside.
Складываем. Передняя
I've also tacked the front of the camera.
с металла.
This is the wrong side and this is the right side.
Я лицо. В нижней части
Do not forget to make a tiny notch on the center front in the yoke.
просто малюсенькую миллиметровую.
Here's the center front in the skirt.
Вот он.
Measure and mark 2 centimeters down from the edge
У меня, конечно, такой
and apply the yoke.
ужас. Не знаю, откуда он взялся. Центр
The center front and the details should match.
прикал.
Pin the details and tack them.
Видите, как
You can see that all the details match.
новые юбки, поэтому у нас все хорошо
That means that the basic pattern was accurate.
совпадает. У нас и бока
The side seams will also be overlapping.
с открытым срезом.
The front of the skirt is ready. These are the side seams.
Боковой
I'll show you how to tack one of them and I'll tack the second one off the camera.
за камерой.
I need to measure and mark 2 centimeters as well.
Я
I'm going to apply the front detail on the back one. But if you make it vice versa, it would also be okay.
собираю бока.
I can start taking now.
Скоро примерка.
When I finish taking, Ola will try the skirt on.
Так, вот так.
Be very attentive when taking the details.
Готовы. Да, вот так вот.
The skirt is going to be very
У
unusual.
нас. Кто-то, конечно, не может
You can pin the details for taking if you need to.
лавочками. У меня такие глаза, что я не только вижу тут, а со всех сторон. Ну и точно
I'll tack the second side seam off the camera.
шов. Его буду вот так вот накладывать на вот этот. За камерой я это сметаю. Мы тут посоветовали
We've decided to make an open edge in the vent as well.
срезами, то мы тут вносим изменения.
That means that I need to cut the extra pieces.
Для этого мы по краю среза отрезаем припуск на шлицу.
Be very attentive.
К центру, где у меня брать.
Notice that I'm cutting them not on the center back, but along the edge. The center back is marked with the seam.
И теперь ее вот так.
I'll tack the cut detail this way.
Это я вам усложняю жизнь. Можно было
This is a pretty complicated technique.
сделать неоткрытым срезом. Можно было боковые сделать неоткрытым срезом. Можно было
It's not necessary to make such seams.
кокетки.
You can make regular ones.
Но я же думаю, наши-то девочки все смогут. Видите, край
This is how the vent is going to look like.
такой вот, видите, открытыми
Very
срезами.
beautiful.
Очень красиво. Теперь, ну, примерно
Next, I need to measure and mark 14 centimeters here.
сантиметров 14.
This is how long the zipper is going to be.
Узкая там
Next, I need to measure and mark 2 centimeters this way,
сантиметра, откладываем
just like in the other details. I'm going to tack the center back seam next.
спины. Отлично.
The vent is going to be very beautiful.
С открытым срезом. Давно мы уже у нас
I love skirts of blend wool.
мы знаем.
They look very beautiful.
Спицами и
Such overlap seams
с кокетками.
look unusual and interesting.
И всякие разные на рельефчиках. Технология не
The technique is pretty complicated,
интересными, а
but the garments made this way
интересная вещь
look absolutely amazing.
очень просто. Она и
And we look amazing wearing them.
нам
This is how the vent is going to look like.
такая у нас будет шличка.
I can't wait for Ola to try the skirt on.
Новые. Олю мерить.
The tailors who work in my fashion house are professionals.
Валки. Это факт.
It's no problem for them to stitch a skirt with a cover stitch machine.
Конечно, так не умею, как они.
I know for sure that the girls are better than I am.
Валки. Что у нас?
Let's have a look at the back.
Смотрите. Центр спины.
The center back,
Шлица
the
с
vent.
срезом. И вот здесь девочки
There will be a zipper inserted here.
покажут мастер-класс, как вшить молнию. Да, вот так.
This is how the skirt looks like now. Next, Ola will try it on.
Нижней юбки. Вот так выглядит
This is the back, and this is the front.
по эскизу.
The skirt looks just like it did in the sketch.
Да,
Have a look at Ola.
примерка. Это
She is wearing the tack skirt.
талии чуть-чуть,
The skirt is a bit loose on the waistline.
чуть-чуть немножко вкатить.
We'll make it tighter by 1 centimeter.
Ну, на сантиметрик с каждой стороны по 0,5.
There is a seam on the center front and 2 princess seams on the front.
Боковые внахлёст, кокетки
The details are tacked with the overlap seams.
срезом. Смотрите, какая хорошая, комфортная.
The skirt is very comfortable.
Подошьётся снизу,
The bottom will be edged with the facing. It will make it a bit stronger.
движется, отпарится
The skirt won't be lined.
свою.
How to insert a zipper in a skirt of blend wool. We'll show you how to do it without a cover stitch machine. We've already shown you how to make a skirt of the blend wool with the overlapping seams. How to insert a zipper in such skirt. We're going to make a mock-up of this pink blend wool. There will be a zipper in the upper part and a slit in the lower part of the mock-up. Let's start with the zipper. First, we need to mark the wrong side in the fabric. The width of the seam is 1.5 centimeters. I remind you that we are making just a mock-up. This is not an actual garment. First, we need to measure and mark 1.5 centimeters and draw a line here. This is where the seam is going to be placed. We also need to mark the length of the zipper in the fabric. This detail is 1.5 centimeters wide. We need to cut the extra pieces from the fabric to make this edge straight. Next, we need to measure and mark 1.5 centimeters on the other side as well. They will be edged differently. Have a look here. Natalie has marked 1.5 centimeters from the edge, and she has also marked the checkpoints. Let's have a look at the right side. The zipper should be covered this way. That means that we need to cut about 1 centimeter or 1.2 centimeters from this edge. Watch what Natalie is doing very attentively. Cut the extra pieces from the seam. Have a look here. This is the same line. It's just that the width of the extension is just about 2 or 3 millimeters now. Next, we need to double this edge with the interfacing material. Let's go to the ironing desk. Be very attentive. To double this edge accurately, you need to attach the interfacing material about 1 or 2 millimeters away from the edge itself. If you apply it right to the edge, it will be seen from the right side. Do not forget that the interfacing material should be cut on the lengthwise grain. This is a must. In this case, it will prevent the edge from stretching. We've doubled the edge with the interfacing material. And next we can go to the sewing machine to stitch the zipper to one of the sides. Natalie is taking the zipper before stitching. The width of the seam is 5 millimeters. Don't be lazy. Tack the details before stitching them. The garments we sew should be perfect. Be careful. Don't stretch or gather the fabric. We're using a regular foot for stitching the zipper. The width of the seam is just 1 or 2 millimeters. Have a close look here. Put the presser foot right on the chain to make an even seam. As I've said, the width of the seam is just 1 or 2 millimeters. We can remove the tagging now. Be very attentive. This is what we doubled this part of the seam for. We did it to prevent it from stretching. The interfacing material is not visible. Do everything just like we show you. Let's have a look at the second edge. There is a raw edge in it as well. Mark the checkpoint on the right side. The checkpoint marks the end of the zipper. We need to stitch this detail right along the edge. The width of the seam is 1 mm as well. The seam is almost invisible, but it will prevent the edge from stretching. Have a look at the seam. The fabric has stretched a bit. This is why we need to iron it. We cannot double it with the interfacing material. This is why we need to shape it with an iron. Have a look at the way Natalie is doing it.
Слегка подутюживаем одну сторону нашей молнии.
This seam was made for us to be able to stitch the center back seam accurately. We're not going to do it in this video, but you will have to do it when sewing skirts. We need to draw the checkpoint once again. Join the details. Make sure that the seams match and tack the zipper. Be very careful when tacking. Make sure that you are doing everything accurately. When we finish tacking, we'll stitch the zipper with a one-sided foot. In the next video, we'll show you how to edge the center back seam and the slit. We've changed the foot. We can start stitching now. Natalie has decided to draw a line for stitching first. This seam is going to be both decorative and functional. It should be very beautiful. Natalie is doing everything perfectly. Be very attentive, please. When you reach the checkpoint, leave a needle inside and turn the detail. Make back stitches here. That's it. The two seams are parallel. They are very beautiful. I remind you that this is just a mock-up. This is why we finished stitching this way. If it was an actual skirt, we would have had to stitch the seam further. Let's go to the ironing desk. Be very attentive. It's better to use steam and some pressing equipment to prevent leaving iron marks. Very beautiful. I love the result. The zipper looks amazing. It's very neat. Be very attentive. If you decide to line a skirt, you should stitch the lining to the zipper. I remind you that the edges in this detail are raw. Anyway, you can see that they look very beautiful. One of the sides is doubled with the interfacing material, and the other was made stronger by seam. This is the best way to stitch the zipper to a blend wool item. You can do it without a cover stitch machine. We were glad to show you this technique. How to edge a vent in such skirt. I remind you that this is just a mock-up. When cutting this mock-up, we cut two symmetric details. This is what we usually do when making a mock-up. Due to the fact that this is a skirt with the raw edges, we need to cut an extra piece from this slit. We'll just cut it without thinking much. The best thing about the techniques we show you is that they don't require using the cover stitch machine. There is a vent in the second detail. We've already cut the facing for it. It should be cut on the lengthwise grain, just like the main fabric. Both the fabric and the interfacing material should be cut on the lengthwise grain. They shouldn't stretch. This is very important. The other side, as well as the bottom, will be edged with the facing and doubled with the interfacing material. Next, we need to double the details. Be very attentive. Do not confuse the right and the wrong sides when applying the interfacing material to the details. Do not forget about the direction of the lengthwise grain. The interfacing material is what prevents the details from stretching. This is very important. Have a look here. Here is the lengthwise grain. This is the facing for the slit. It was cut on the lengthwise grain as well. It doesn't stretch in this direction. Let's go back to the sewing machine. When the details are doubled, trim the edges. Cut the extra pieces of the interfacing material. The details should be perfect. Let's start with the upper detail of the vent. Do you remember the rule for making vents? When you look at a skirt this way, the vent should be in your left hand. We are going to double the upper detail first. We need to mark the position of the vent, about 1 centimeter below this angle. Pin the details and stitch them. It's not hard to pin them. The width of the seam is 1 millimeter. The seam should start from the checkpoint. Watch what Natalie is doing very attentively. She's made an even seam parallel to the edge. The width of the seam is just 1 millimeter. Next, we're going to make one more seam. It should be 1 centimeter wide.
начинаем.
Start stitching from the checkpoint as well.
Высота. Высота шлицы. Небольшая
Do
затяжка.
not forget to make back stitches in the beginning and the end of the seam.
Чтобы мы, когда соединили вот этот средний шов спинки,
When the center back is stitched,
совпали.
these seams have to match.
От молнии
This is what we made the second seam for.
этого шва на шлице.
The two seams are parallel and they're very
У
beautiful.
нас получились. И у нас есть такой небольшой изгиб.
This extra piece can be cut. We don't need it.
Не нужен. Перевернули на изнаночную сторону.
Turn the skirt wrong side out. We need to edge the second edge as well.
Срезаем.
Cut the extra pieces from this detail as well.
И также
We need to pin the facing
тачка, так же как мы здесь.
and then
По
stitch
тому же
it.
принципу делаем со второй стороны. Скалываем и настрачиваем.
We need to pin the facing both to the vent and the bottom.
Шлицы и по низу. Ну, в нашем
In our
случае
case, it's pretty convenient to do it.
и
Stitch the details from the right side.
строчку. Также первая
The width of the
строчка
first seam
идет
is 1 millimeter as well.
один от среза. Очень аккуратно.
Be very attentive. Stitch the angle accurately.
И
Leave the needle inside and turn the detail.
поднимаем лапку и поворачиваем. Это все можно сделать на
The technique for stitching these details with a cover stitch machine
но это
is a
тоже
bit different.
интересный способ для
We're showing you the technique for stitching them with a regular sewing machine.
Можно не отказывать себе в ладене. Проложили первую
We've made the first seam,
сразу же можно
and next we're going to make the second one.
строчку.
The width of the seam is 1 centimeter.
Сантиметр от первой. Вы можете
You can use
делать
threads of different colors for stitching.
нитками в цвет.
Use them to decorate your garment.
Если у кого есть
You can even try interesting shaped stitches. Be creative.
эта строчка отделочная, она может быть какая угодно. Срезаем сразу.
Cut the extra pieces.
Слегка снаравливаем.
The facing makes the slit and the bottom strong.
Вот эти
Due to this fact, the details
у шлицы будет
won't change their shape.
плоскость.
They won't be
Она не
stretched.
будет разваливаться, не будет такая, вот как вот такой срез сырой. С этой стороны низ у нас
We've
укреплен.
also doubled the bottom in this
Она у
detail.
вас может быть.
If you have enough fabric, you can make one piece facing for the slit and the bottom.
Вот в нашем случае с этой стороны у нас
We did it on one side,
сделать цельную обтачку буквой Г.
and the other side is edged with two different details.
Нашу обтачку низа, ширина шва 0,5. Сейчас все отутюжим.
Next, we need to iron the
Нам
mockup.
нужно отутюжить вот эту деталь. Чтобы здесь не было вот
First,
такой
we need to make a small notch here to press this seam open.
большую надсечку. Мы хотим этот кусочек, сейчас, Наташа, секунду. Мы хотим
This is the seam I'm talking about.
но если мы вот эту часть разутюжим, тогда у нас сломается вот эта линия. Мы
If they
делаем
press the whole seam this way,
большую надсечку.
the facing would be
Мы
damaged.
можем спокойно
This is why we're making a notch here. As I've said, if you have enough fabric, you can make one piece facing for the slit and the bottom. The details are very neat. The seam is thin and beautiful. Iron the details and cut all the extra pieces from them. Be very attentive. Notice that the center back seam is not stitched yet. Do not forget to cut the extra pieces after stitching and ironing the details. You can make this detail tighter. It would also be okay. You can also stitch the lining right to this detail. Next, it's time to stitch the center back seam. Natalie has pinned the details. I remind you that the seams in the skirt are overlapping. Pin the details. Mark the checkpoints, like the end of the slit. The seam should end right in this point. First, we're going to make a seam here. We're basically going to extend the first seam. Be very careful. The width of the seam is 1 millimeter. When you reach the checkpoint, the end of the slit, and make a bias seam here to fix the slit. You can draw it in advance. Have a look here. Natalie has extended this seam and made a tiny bias seam here. Have a look at the wrong side. When making this seam, make sure not to stitch this detail. You may need it for stitching lining. Here are the seams. Next, we need to make the second seam, the decorative one. The width of the seam is 1 centimeter. This seam is also an extension of the seam from the zipper. Be very careful. Do not forget about the bottom stop of the zipper. The second seam should be parallel to the first one. The width of the seam is 1 centimeter. Very beautiful. Natalie, you're amazing. Do not forget to cut the extra pieces. Let's have a look at the mock-up. It's very neat. These seams were extended to the bottom. Be very careful. The width of the seams is the same in all the details. This is why they look so beautiful. Next, we need to stitch the facing to the bottom of the lower detail. The width of the first seam is 1 millimeter. Stitch the details from the right side. The width of the second seam is 1 centimeter.
Немножко выравниваем.
I remind you that this is just a mock-up. When sewing a regular skirt, you would have to stitch the whole bottom this way. Next, we need to iron the details once again. Everything looks very beautiful. The zipper, the vent. The mock-up is very neat. Natalie is steaming the details. The vent looks very beautiful. The decorative seams are absolutely amazing. We were glad to show you the technique for edging the vents in the skirts. I remind you that this is a skirt of blend wool with raw edges. I hope that you find this technique useful. You can use it without a cover stitch machine. That's all for today. Be different and beautiful. We're Ira and Natalie. Buy our courses, subscribe to this channel, write comments, share the videos, press the like and the bell buttons. We would really appreciate your support. Thank you. Goodbye.